Hi everyone, this is David, and welcome back to the channel and day 2 of the JEGS ET Series at National Trail Raceway in Hebron, Ohio. Today is the last official day of racing for the ET Series. There's one more weekend of racing next weekend for the Halloween Hoot Out, and I will be there to cover it as well. Now, on the two cameras yesterday, I honestly could not tell a lot of difference, and in many occasions, if I didn't look at the metadata, I couldn't even possibly tell you absolutely positively for sure which camera was which. As I previously mentioned, the one thing that I did notice, and I don't think it has anything to do with the kit lens. I'm going to experiment with it today. I'm going to put the 18x55. No, I'm not either, because you can't put an EFS on a full frame body. There's not really any way to test it except with another crop sensor. EF lenses that are made for full frame cameras will fit a crop sensor body. EFS lenses made for a crop sensor body will not fit a full frame camera. So if I were to go out and buy a 6D or a 5D, any of their other DSLRs that are full frame, any of my crop sensor lenses, my 50mm, my 10 to 18 millimeter, my 18 to 135, my 28 to 135, none of those will fit on a full frame camera. They don't go. But anything that I buy in an EF for a full frame camera will fit on the crop sensor. So what I'm going to do to test the theory today is I'm going to put the 24 to 105 on the 70D and see if it still has problems with the AI servo keeping the focus. My guess is yes. My guess is that I'm pushing the camera a little harder than what it was ever really designed for. I mean, let's face it, these cars are going pretty fast. So let's get to the intro and we'll come back and talk about this some more in a minute. All right, you ready, Wonder Mutt? Key the music. Okay, as we were saying, good grief, I gotta roll them all up. As we were saying, I was, and it's not something I do very often, but I was impressed with the way that the cameras, both of them, performed in aperture priority. I did find that when I was on the right side of the track, the right lane of the track, and the sun was not in an ideal position, that I had it had a tendency to be slightly underexposed. To reiterate, to go over what we talked about in the last video, aperture priority AV on the Canon setting, and it's I don't know what it is off the top of my head on Nikon or Sony. You set the aperture. You tell the camera what you want the aperture to be, and it sets the appropriate shutter speed. Now, in the past, for all the images you've seen in the past, I've actually had to feather the shutter up and down, the little wheel on top, because as I'm pointing at the cars, the exposure has to come up. But as the cars were moving away, the exposure has to come back down. It's even somebody who's been doing this for as long as I have, it can be easy to miss the shot, simply because it's slightly overexposed. I try not to blow the highlights out too much. I like to do minimal post-processing. I keep saying this over and over and over again, but I like to, hang on just a second. Looks like there's a thumbprint on the lens. Probably is, with my big meaty paws. Wasn't that interesting? Anyway, setting it on aperture priority, I kind of varied it between f9 and f11. Good aperture, keeps everything in focus, gives you lots of background detail too, lets you know it's a racetrack. But I found that when I was shooting, especially in the direction towards the sun, the images were slightly underexposed, especially if it was a black car. You get a lot of shine on the hood, but everything in the back of it, even manipulating the shutter, the shadow slider and things like that in Lightroom, things were still just not, you could look at it, you could just tell it wasn't right. And this is where it was kind of quirky, because it took me a little to get used to it. When you're in aperture priority, when you look at the Canon, a prosumer Canon or a pro camera, there's two wheels. There's one up by the exposure, that is typically shutter speed. There's another one on the back that you move with your thumb, that's aperture. It's like old leather, it's comfortable for me. I've been doing it for 20 years, I'm used to it. But when you go into aperture priority, the wheel on the top no longer controls the shutter speed. It controls the aperture. So you can adjust your aperture and the camera will automatically compensate with the right shutter speed, or as much as it thinks is the right shutter speed. It completely reverses the two buttons. Now, what I found when I was pointing when I was on the right side of the track and the cars were slightly underexposed, if I reached down and rolled the wheel down clockwise, I could increase the exposure. In this case, I increased it by 2/3 of a stop. And the pictures were perfect, absolutely perfect. It almost made it effortless. And it's something that if you've never experienced with, try it. I like it, and for racing, I will probably use it a lot more. Now, on the difference between RAW and JPEG, there is some difference, but I really found that there wasn't a lot in the quality of the images. What you've got to keep in mind is most of these images that I'm shooting right now, they're going to be in the yearbook. They're going to be in the National Trail yearbook, or they're going to use them on their Instagram page, or they're going to use them on their FaceSpace page, or they're going to use them, you know, however they use them for advertisement or for banners for events or all manner of things. But none of these are really going to be tremendous print images. So that's not going to work. It's getting a little warm in here. That sun coming through the... So anyway, I hope that that's not going to mess up this volume. So aperture priority in JPEG mode, even with a kit lens, produced an acceptable image. Would I use it for, like if you look in the other directory where I did the flag shoot, would I use it for stills? No, I wouldn't use it for stills. There's a lot of people that do use aperture priority for stills. I'm sure that it would work fine. I would have to be, but I have used manual for so long because maybe it's just because I'm a bit of a control freak, but it's amazing some of the little things that these cameras will do that you forget they'll do because you never use them. And in the meantime, as these cameras, as new iterations of them come out, as new models and things like that come out, these features and functions that are associated with these cameras only gets better. And when you don't use them, you forget how good they were, and you'll never know how much better they've become. So I really need to practice what I preach and start using some of the semi-automatic features more. I would never use the automatic features. I would never, even with today's TTL flashes and things like that will adjust the light for you automatically based on what your camera sees. I don't think I'd probably ever use, any of the other fully automatic, like sports modes or whatever, unless I was just looking at a situation that I literally had no idea. I couldn't figure it out. And there have been a few of those. And then flipping it over into auto mode, firing off one picture, and then looking to see what the camera has done could potentially give you a good starting point. Say, okay, well, I see what the camera's done here. It's gone to, especially if you have your ISO and everything else in automatic, it's going to calculate your ISO, it's going to calculate your shutter speed, it's going to calculate your f-stop, it's even going to calculate as best it can your white balance. For all intents and purposes, your white balance will be just like it is on automatic auto white balance when you're shooting in manual. So, but that's about the only time I have ever used the automatic settings. So I'm going to try to get around this 18-wheeler here without wrecking my old car. But anyway, if anybody has any questions on what we've done so far or on what I'm using, I brought a few other things with me today that I'm going to be working with. I've got a 67 millimeter polarizing filter on the kit lens. I want to try to see if I can cut some of that glare. It wasn't a tremendously expensive one. I think it was $32, but so it's, as far as quality goes, I've used it before. I've never had really much in the way of luck with UV filters, although there's a lot of people who swear by them. I've had more luck with neutral density filters and polarizing filters than I have with UV filters. But that's what we used to use in the old days when we wanted something to be more red and we were shooting film. We wanted something to be a little more red. You'd use an amber filter. If you wanted something to be more blue, you use a blue filter. And there are different gradations of red and blue and orange. But anyway, I digress. So we're going to put a polarizing filter on it and see if we can cut some of that glare, but I suspect I'm going to lose. It's a variable polarizing filter. I think it's, I don't know, 2 to 5 stops or something to that effect. I don't use a lot of filters these days. So I'll probably have to adjust the shutter speed manually. I'll probably have to increase it just to make up the difference in the filter. But I love experimenting. I do. I have this equipment that I absolutely positively rarely use. I need it every once in a while, and I don't mean things like $4,000 lenses, 400 millimeter. I'm not talking about things like that. I'm talking about things like neutral density filters and polarizing filters, and it's just like, I'll go over another one with you real quick, and this one is something that I highly recommend. For about $20 or $25, Canon sells a remote for your camera. So there's 2 ways you can trigger the camera, obviously, without actually being there. You can set the timer and run around in front of it, or you can use, I don't know of any of them today that don't use a remote. I found that the Canon remote that uses infrared, it has difficulty a lot of times outside because there's a lot of ultraviolet light. So I haven't bought an infrared filter for years. All of them that I have are radio signal. So it's got a little mount that goes on your hot shoe, or in my case, I put a little piece of Velcro on my tripod, and I always stick a little piece to the side of the receiver, and I just stick it to the side of the tripod, and then the antenna, it's got a little antenna and stuff on it. And if I want to get into a group picture, which I definitely recommend getting into a group picture, always be part of your own pictures from time to time. You're not just making memories for yourself, you're making memories for other people too. So, but anyway, I do recommend that you get one that is radio controlled. They'll always have the ability, even if you get interference from other radio signals around, every one of them that I've ever purchased gives you an opportunity to change the channels on the transmitter and on the receiver, so that if you are getting any interference, and they're just little dip switches that you like were on motherboards and things for years. So, all right, this is what happens when you start making a video without a list of things you want to remember. You start going all over the place, and I'm what they call OCD and ADHD. So everything has to be absolutely perfect, but just for a little while. So we're gonna push on through here. We got about another half hour or so of driving. I'd like to get over, but everybody's trying to swing around me on the right here. So stay tuned, and we will see you guys up there. Well, we are here. I'm a nerd, I know. They had a little bit of a deluge this morning, and they've been waiting on the track to dry, and it looks like it's perfect. The junior dragsters are lining up now. I'm going to grab my chair and my knee pads, and I'm going to get out trackside and take some photos. So come on, let's go. Okay, so you guys saw that I did most of the racing pictures and stuff yesterday. Today I've been kind of concentrating on the details, the burnouts, the wheelies, the action shots. Right now, you guys have seen several times before in the past, the Superman dragster. He had an oil pressure issue, and he's going to swap engines today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk over and see how much progress he's made on that thing. Well, that was day 2 of the final JEGS ET Series for 2022. We spent 10 hours, 12 hours shooting. With 2 different cameras, we shot about 3,000, a little over 3,000 images, 3,200 on 2 cameras. 2 cameras, 2 lenses. I did put the EF 25-104. I did put that on the 70D and tried it out a little bit. I didn't drop focus, not once. I still think it might be the camera and not the lens, simply because today is really overcast. There was not a lot of direct sunlight, and it seemed that the only time that it would do that is when I was moving from a darker area, like where the cars launch from, right in front of the Christmas tree, to a more brighter area where you get the reflection from the silver bleachers and everything else that are up there. So I still think it's a camera thing, but you know what? It only did it. You're talking about over 3,000 images, and to have it only do it 5 or 6 times, that's not something that's going to concern me terribly. It only did it when the cars were passing directly in front of me, and there was 2 different levels. I am on center point focus, but I am also shooting f9. I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not. Just have to trial and error some more. I'll continue to take the what did I say, 24 to 105. I'll continue to take the 24 to 105. We're shooting at National Trail Raceway again next weekend for the Halloween hootout / Halloween shootout, whatever you want to call it. Really looking forward to it. They really go overboard in decorating, and there's just things everywhere. So I'm really looking forward to walking through the pits and seeing what everybody has done. So, well, thanks everybody for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it. We shot about I don't know, somewhere between 180 and 200 little video snippets. As you can see, each one's only about 20 seconds long, something to that effect. And then we intersperse it with the pictures that we took with the stills, so you can see what it is that I'm seeing. But I hope that you enjoyed it. Please subscribe. We're trying to grow the channel. Hit that notification bell. Leave me a comment. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know what you think. I know there's one person who logged in and said, I thought I was going to see racing. Well, you were seeing racing, but it is a channel about photography and about the different ways that it can enhance and enrich in your life, and how you will treasure those stills later on. So, thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you next time.